Good morning, YouTube. What are we looking at here? This is an engine compartment of a 1977 VW bus. Yeah, um, pretty good shape. Everything is there. A couple extra pieces like an MSD ignition, and yeah, runs really well. And I want to keep it that way. Over the last couple of years, I've always been tinkering around, and one of the things that I had in mind from the very get-go was the fact that those VWs like to catch on fire. They, have fuel rails running right. Let's see here. See the shiny steel line here. This one. That's the main fuel line running from one side of the injection system to the other side of the engine. So right on top of the engine, usually those fuel lines, especially here in the 77, used to be rubber, soft rubber line, high pressure line, but still rubber line. And when people don't maintain them properly, they crack and crumble, and eventually you have a fuel leak. And then something happens that you then find on YouTube. A bus burns up on the side of the road. So from the very get-go, I've always had that in mind. And if I didn't do anything, but I replaced the fuel lines. So it first got fresh rubber fuel lines, German spec, bought them from a guy in Canada, German supplies. And that worked really well. And this German supply guy also offers sets of steel fuel lines. They were installed in the later models 78 and 79. They pretty much, a set of fuel lines goes right between, here's the cold start valve, this puppy here. So between the cold start valve and the fuel rails on the right and on the left, a piece of steel fuel line, and you still have a couple inch long rubber pieces connecting the rail to the steel fuel line. And then he also sells steel fuel line that runs under the vehicle from the fuel tank to the fuel pump, and then on the other side from the fuel pressure regulator back into the fuel tank. So those pieces are also steel. Still some rubber fuel line there, and there's still potential of a leak or a fire. If you ask a fireman, he will give you the definition of a fire. It's oxygen, a fuel source, and heat. And that's all here in this engine compartment for sure. There's air, lots of it, lots of heat, and fuel. And to further mitigate the risk of having a fire in my bus, I bought something. It's called BlazeCut, automatic fire suppression system. A couple of vendors here in the US that sell this thing. I bought it at gowesty.com. Decent price. They make it in a few different models. So it's not just for VWs, it's for any vehicle that you want to mount one. You can also put it in breaker panels, in electrical installations, in machinery, wherever you have the risk of a fire. In your RV, for example, where your battery bank is in your RV or your boat, or you name it. They make it in different length. Let's prop this up. I bought the 6 feet long loop. The piping here is, I want to say, maybe 3/4 inch diameter. On one end, it has a little pressure gauge. See that? Needle is packed all the way in the green. That's good. High pressure. And I guess on the other side, you have a little fill valve. So what that supposedly is a liquefied gas. And this plastic tubing here is heat resistant up to a certain temperature. Everything above that, it will break, burst open, and release the liquefied gas, and then extinguish your engine compartment fire or your fire in your breaker box or what have you. So this puppy here now needs to go onto the ceiling of my bus somehow. And I keep thinking of where to put this and how to zip tie it in and how to attach it and all that. But really, honestly, it's not going to be a big deal. I like to kind of permanently mount stuff so it doesn't flop around and it's not in the way when I'm working on stuff. But let's see. I mean, 6 feet of little tubing here cannot be that hard to put to the ceiling of the bus. I mean, there are already some wires running for the MSD ignition, and there's fuel line here as well. And I hope that's not fuel. No, it's not. This here is the vent lines coming from the fuel tank. You have one on each side, and then you have this little rubber tee here. Those like to also kind of crack and crumble, and then you have a fuel leak right here in the middle. Also, on the far right, up there in the air intake, and on the far left, up there in the air intake, is another little piece of rubber fuel line that connects the vent line coming from the tank to this contraption here. And they like to break too. So you always have to keep an eye on that. When it starts smelling like fuel in your car, stop and look. Yeah, so now I'm looking for a proper way of attaching this, making it all look pretty. Maybe have the pressure gauge somewhere here in the front so I can see it, and then make sure that I don't get a fire anymore. I mean, I haven't had one, but not planning on. Especially we're gonna go on a trip, 6 hour, 7 hour drive down to Cathedral State Park in Nevada, and yeah, one last camp for the season. Now I want to make sure we get there and back without any catching on fire. I will end this video, and once I have it installed, I will show the installation and how I decided to attach it to the bus. All right, take care.